this is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Well, welcome to Red Pill Nation Radio. I'm your host, Nathan Davis. Johnny Henderson will not be joining us tonight. He is on vacation. And I didn't have a show yesterday of Daily Dose of Reality. I will be having one on Friday, going over what's been going on Thursday and Friday. So I think I'll have a Monday and a Friday show for right now. As time goes on, I might expand out from that, but I think that'll be the easiest way to go for right now, since this is pretty much a one-man show. So, first off, I want to get into, again, the special that we had. We did make the determination that the nuclear device drop more than likely is conjecturous, was something that somebody came up with, but it's still possible. I mean, I really hate to say that about our government, but it's still possible that they did order this because it's come to out in the news that 9 now top brass in the military have been fired. So it's gone from 4 people now to 9 people that have been fired in the top part of the military, and this has caused fear within the military ranks. You have even infantry getting upset because they think if they say anything negative about Obama and his administration that they could be next. So what they're looking for is they're not looking for the people that, on Facebook when we were threatening at that point to go to war with Syria, holding up signs saying, and taking pictures saying, I did not sign up to go get involved in a civil war in Syria. They want the people that posted pictures that said, shut up and follow orders. That's what we were hired for. Those type of people don't think for themselves. They don't use critical thinking. They just follow orders. They would follow orders even if it meant killing their own family in some cases, because they have been accepted in a group. They feel accepted in it. They enjoy the camaraderie. They feel like they belong, and they will protect that comforting feeling that they get from being a part of the military, and by doing so, they will step on people's rights. And it goes along with the police as well. I mean, I have family members that think I'm picking on the police because I sit there and say, they are stepping on people's rights. When they stop them and they search their vehicles for no reason, when they do different things, like stop. I saw one video of a guy, 2 guys walking down the street, and this is in Philadelphia. Now they have a right just to stop you because they suspect you of doing something wrong. And the cop pulled up beside him, slammed on their brakes, they jumped out, grabbed him, threw him against the car, and started searching him. And the profanity that came out of the police officers' mouths was just, unprofessional, to say the least. But that's what we're moving toward. We're moving towards a police state. We're moving towards a place where if you question authority, you are a risk. And so they're getting rid of these top brass in the military, and that's the scary thing as well, because these could be the last patriots standing up against tyranny. And they're going to replace them with people that will do the bidding of the president, mindlessly following orders. These men, more than likely, were not going to mindlessly follow orders. They were going to stand up, and any unconstitutional order, they were going to say no. But you have many people that take that oath to uphold the Constitution and do the exact opposite. They step on the Constitution. And those are probably the ones that are going to fill those spots. The ones that will just go, yes, sir. So while the report that may have been brought up may have had some conjecturous elements to it, it's not outside the realm of possibility. If you look into it, if you look at what's going on, having the president order a strike on his own people is not that far-fetched. Hitler did it to his own people. Mao did it to his own people. All these leaders did it to their own people. History speaks of people in power doing crazy things to their people to keep power, to build fear. You have a frightened population, you drive that fear. You make them afraid of the people you want them afraid of. Hitler did not want communism to, cloud his message. Cloud the Nazi Party's entry into power in Germany. So he made them the enemy. Then they had no political power. He blamed them of the burning of their capital. The reason being is that it made them the enemy. It made them somebody they could force out of power. They lost their voice in that country. And speaking of communism, came out yesterday that the woman that nearly passed out behind the president, her name is Carmel Allison, may not enroll in Obamacare. She's pregnant, she has type 1 diabetes, and has been under her same plan since she was 9. Just before she found out she had diabetes, she got this insurance plan. And she's not sure whether she would get a better rate through Obamacare. Now the problem is that there are a lot of insurance companies that are dropping people that have pre-existing conditions. This came out in the news yesterday as well, that people are being dropped because they have a pre-existing condition, or a guaranteed condition as they call it. And what they're going to do, and their excuse is that they're doing this so that the people can re-sign up under the new plan that covers them. Gives them better premiums, gives them better deductibles than their current plan. That hasn't been seen yet. And if they try to sign up through Obamacare, good luck, because they've been having tons of problems with the website. And with that, they've called in all kinds of tech gurus to try and fix the website. It does not work. And people that do get their information in the system, more than likely it's open, where anybody can see it that knows what they're doing. So there's been a number of people that are into website building that say that the site is horrible, the coding is a mess, and it leaves an open door policy for hackers, that hackers can come in there and see your information without any hindrance, basically. So they're calling in people to try to fix this mess. Now, they had 4 years. They had 4 years to build a freaking website that works. And you're telling me that, oh well, and then blame it on the shutdown? That's something that happened recently? Come on, 4 years to come up with a viable website that has, airtight coding should not be hard. And to sit there and blame it on something that happened about the same time as Obamacare was wheeled out. That doesn't add up and doesn't make sense. But of course, the masses follow along. So this lady, she might not sign up for it, even though she thinks that it will help with her deductibles, which of course, her premiums and deductibles, she'll probably see a drop. But the healthy people, the people that have no pre-existing condition, will eat her savings, which means that they will be seeing a raise in their premiums and deductibles to, aid in paying for her added care. And also the fact that you have to have included things in the policy. Maternity is one of them, maternity coverage. Even if you are a woman that is, beyond those years, you still have that on there, which adds to your premium cost. So the whole Obamacare thing is just imploding on itself But you still have people toting the line saying, oh, it's going to work out, it's just a hiccup in the beginning, without the understanding that you've had 4 years, people, to come up with something viable, come up with something that works. And unfortunately, that's not what we have here. And Obamacare is a failure on many levels, especially because it is going to raise premiums. It's not going to work. We're on a failing currency system. That's another thing. China, of course, has said that they're going to come up with a new base currency. They're not going to trade in U.S. dollars anymore. If that happens, and they have more and more countries go on board with their new currency, and we're not going to attack them like the little countries in the Middle East that did this. You look at it. Look at who changed their currency, and we attacked. Every one of them that changed their currency, except for Iran, yet, we have attacked. And we've made sure that they switch their currency back over to the U.S. dollar for their trade currency. Well, China is a different story. 2 billion people, 3 billion people. I don't think we're going to go in there guns blazing trying to stop them from, transitioning to another currency, especially when ours is on verge of collapse, and we can't afford another war, especially with the largest populous country. And China knows this. China is the perfect country to wheel in a new currency, even if it would be weaker than the dollar at its top, at its peak, when it was a competitive currency. We became the global trading currency under Nixon. Nixon promptly took us off the gold standard. The reason is that he did not want other countries to, trade out the dollars for gold and cause a rush. But it was supposed to be temporary. That was a temporary order in 1971 to suspend the transfer of gold for dollars. Temporary has gone on for over 40 years. But yeah, so we went off the gold standard then. We were already in a fiat system anyway because it was loosely tied to the dollar. But totally removing the gold from the dollar standard caused a collapse. Caused a Nixon shock, excuse me. And that's what really led to a lot of the economic struggles in the 70s is Nixon shock and basically trying to balance the currency that you've just basically made have fiat, totally fiat. Sorry, the phone rang and interrupted my mental concentration. I forgot I had a phone up here. I've been trying to make sure that the house phone is not in here when I'm doing this. So, you have this going on, and you have Obamacare rolling out January 1st under these really turbulent economic conditions, currency conditions, and you have them dropping people, okay? These companies say come December 31st, they are dropped from their policy because they have a pre-existing condition, but they're saying that they can sign back up January 1st. More than likely, with an improved premium. That may be the case, but if you have some of them trying to go through the exchanges and it's still not fixed, you're going to have a big mess come January 1st, especially with people with pre-existing conditions that had insurance that they didn't want to get rid of, which they were told they wouldn't have to get rid of, and are now being lied to because these companies are dropping them. You have the Health and Human Service Secretary who will testify next week. Her name is Kathleen Sebelius. She'll be testifying before Congress about the botched rollout of Obamacare, which they had 4 years to plan out and make sure that there would not be any issues with. And so I can't wait to see what this woman has to say about why this occurred. Please, Obamacare is the biggest crock of crap I've ever seen in my life, let out on the American people, and was uproariously cheered. And still is. You still have people cheering this thing. It's going to be so great. Nothing so far has pointed to it being great. Everything has pointed to it being horrible. And while the premise is understandable to a point, because allowing people to have a portal where they can pick whatever they want is a great idea, but not under the strict regulations that they have, and the fact that they're saying that people with pre-existing conditions have to be covered under the same rates as healthy people. That causes a major problem, because while they're saying, well, you can't charge more for the pre-existing people, they're not saying that you can't raise the rates of the healthy people to compensate. It's a bad thing, bad sign. What should have happened is that you could have had a similar setup, not run by the government, but through privately set up exchanges, which already exist. Just deregulation between state lines would aid in the number of participants in these exchanges and would create more competition in the insurance markets, which would mean lower premiums and deductibles for both healthy and people with pre-existing conditions. The more competition in a market is what produces lower prices, not regulation. Regulation creates the top tier. Regulation creates, the small minority of super wealthy corporations, because they use lobbyists and other means to manipulate the regulations in their favor. So they have loopholes that they can get through, like they do with taxation. GE in 2009, during the worst collapse of the stock market since the Great Depression, actually got money back from their taxes for that year. They didn't pay anything out in taxes. Here's this company, huge company, with huge profits, getting paid by us. Tax dollars. Millions of tax dollars went to them during the worst economic collapse in American history. Second to the Depression. That's pointing to some major failings within our taxation and regulation laws. You have big farms that have the same regulations as the small farmer. And the large corporate farms have no problem keeping up with those regulations, because they hire teams of lawyers to do it for them. But the small mom and pop farm, getting the same huge stack of regulations, which is 3-4 inches thick, can't keep up with them. Sometimes they accidentally break one of the regulations because they don't know about it, because they're trying to keep their business going. They're trying to work hard to put food on the table. They don't have time to sit there and make sure that they're crossing every T and dotting every I within the government's regulations that allow GMO production, but put stricter regulations on those growing organic food. Organic and non-GMO. The best thing out there is the non-GMO project. It's a privately owned, charitably funded group that is investigating these companies. They're letting them in, giving them the seal for non-GMO to kind of give some kind of watchdog entity to make sure that the people know what they're getting. Because you buy some of this food and you don't know that it's GMO or not, and there's no concrete study on, GMO, on genetically modified food and what it does to you long term. In 1992, that was written into the law that no further studies were needed for GMO food. So since 1992, we haven't had any official study on GMO foods to make sure that they're healthy, that they're non-corrosive to the human body. But they won't do that. Bees are dying. Bees are dying, but people are like, no, that's not true. Okay, well, you have a plant that produces its own insecticide. What the hell is a bee? It's an insect. So you have corn that has been modified to produce its own insect-killing enzymes, and you don't think it's going to affect the bee population, which is the biggest pollinator of all crop species. There are many beekeepers that refuse to rent their bees out to certain farms because they lose the majority of their bees. And this is not just GMOs. There's also, you have the problem of seeds that are coated with insecticides. And in a similar principle to GMOs, once the plant grows, the insecticide is inside the plant, inside the fruits it produces and vegetables. And bees go to it, and they drink the nectar. It messes with their neurological systems. And in many cases, what they're finding is it prevents them from being able to, it disorients them, basically. It gives them kind of a dementia, and they forget where their hive is, and they wander off, get lost, and die. And so you have huge hives that just die out because, they don't come back from this neurological damage from the insecticides. But I'm getting way off course. But it's all interconnected, all these different things. And, it's kind of like the drug war. Come on now. We've picked these drugs and we've scheduled them out, but pharmaceutical companies are allowed to do whatever they want, produce whatever they want. And I'll tell you one thing, that they're not going to look for a cure because the regulations make it so much easier for them to create treatments. It's less costly to produce a treatment than it is a cure. That doesn't make much sense to me because you would hope that the government would want these companies to look for cures, but they make it a lot easier for them to come up with treatments. So the only thing you ever get is treatments. And not very good ones at that. Look at THC from marijuana. The pharmaceutical company, even though the government says that marijuana has no medical benefit, the pharmaceutical company jumped on the bandwagon. And they produced a THC pill. And they gave it to these patients that were using medical marijuana. And it was supposed to be under the premise that it would not get you high. But the side effects included uncontrolled giddiness, hunger, tiredness, pretty much every thing that is included in people that are high off marijuana. So it was no different than a marijuana high, but because they were a pharmaceutical company and they were putting it in a pill, that made it okay. You were no longer getting high. It was a side effect. And the patients that took it said that basically it didn't have the same effect. Its potency, its ability to do what it needed to do was reduced in pill form. The reason is that you have complex chemical compounds within a plant. They can't be duplicated readily within a lab. And when you try to isolate one chemical compound and take it away from the rest, the overall benefit is lost because you can't duplicate what nature has provided. And the pharmaceutical company isn't learning that, because what they're doing is they're manipulating the patent market and they're manipulating the regulation market laws, basically. Shouldn't say market laws, but they treat it like a market. They are making it out so that when they take a certain compound out of a plant, they can patent it. They've also patented human genes. Genes that are readily in our body, they have a patent on. How in the world, or why in the world, our government would allow patents of this nature is beyond me, other than for the same corrupt reasons. They get kickbacks and money for allowing it. So, I mean, we can look at all other aspects of conspiracy and say all kinds of different things, but the baseline stuff is that they're getting kickbacks, you know, and the pharmaceutical companies are making huge sums of money just for producing treatments. And these treatments have large laundry list of side effects. And when you don't have people talking readily about natural cures, natural treatments for people, or if you have a lot of people that get tons of airtime saying that it's all lies and, you know, natural cures are just hokey, even though they've been used for thousands of years, they're hokey. That clouds the water. You have most people that are uninformed, and that's the disinformation that is produced in our country is just mind-boggling. I mean, people fall for all kinds of stuff, and then you don't wonder anymore. Oops, sorry. About why people fall for these email schemes. You know, the African email schemes where they're sitting there saying, I'm going to, if you help me out with this and allow me to deposit yada, 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 you'll get so much money. You just have to send $10,000. And people do it. And so it makes you kind of disenfranchised with humans overall, because you come to the conclusion that the majority of people are looking for an easy out. They are not going to sit there and do the research they need to do. People fall for conjecture all the time, and I'm guilty of it as well. For the most part, I try to do a lot of research, and I think that's the thing, is that we're human, we're going to make mistakes, we're going to make errors, we're going to be led down the wrong path sometimes, but the difference is if you're somebody that's willing to put your time and effort into fact-checking what's put out and put in front of you, you'll be better off. In the long run, you'll be more prepared, and you won't be running around like a chicken with your head cut off when these things happen. Now, God forbid we have an economic collapse, but all signs are pointing to the fact that we're going to have one. So just ignoring it doesn't mean that it's going to go away. Stop being the grasshopper. Prepare. Be the ant. Be the one that stores up. And I hope people know what I'm talking about when I say that. Don't fall into that comfort zone. And it's so easy to do. I have friends that buy stuff and I'm like, oh, you should have invested that in, something else like gold or silver, not stuff. And I'm trying to get rid of a lot of stuff I have that is worthless. It is worthless. It is utterly worthless to keep. That people put emotional value on things instead of understanding intrinsic value. We're all guilty of it. We all have to manage that because it's such a human condition to fall in love with something, and the emotional attachment to it outweighs its actual intrinsic value. Now, there's certain things that I wouldn't say get rid of. The teddy bear that your grandmother gave you that she knitted, no, keep that. That's what I did. Keep the things that are important emotionally, those things that do have sentimental value. But don't put sentimental value on everything. Why do you think shows like Hoarders never run out of a supply of people for their show? Because people become so Americanized, overly Americanized, that everything, including a Burger King wrapper, has intrinsic value. Has some kind of, not intrinsic, but emotional value to that person. It has some emotional meaning. And it's frustrating to so many people. Johnny has been frustrated. I know of so many that have become frustrated with other people and the fact that they can't wake up to what's going on. That they laugh in the face of fact and they sit there and make it out like you're racist, especially because we have a black president. If Obama was white in doing this, I think the mindset of those that are supporting him would not be there. There would be more people jumping ship. There would be more people against him. And that's not a racist statement. That's just factual, because there's so many people that voted for Obama because he was black, not because of what he stood for. That's a big negative in our country. That's a big negative for this administration, was that he did not get in there because he was the right man for the job, but because of the color of his skin. That's the exact opposite of what Martin Luther King was talking about. If he wanted a black president, he wanted that person to get in there because of the content of his character, not the color of his skin. And now there are people that want Hillary in 2016, and many are saying that they're going to vote for her because she's a woman. I'm all for a black president. I'm all for a woman president. If they're the right person for the job, if they're going to uphold the Constitution, not trample all over it, and say that anybody that disagrees with them is going to get fired if they're in the military or in the public domain, or arrested and disappear if you're in the private sector. The Constitution is quickly being dismantled. Our country's sovereignty is quickly disintegrating for globalization. They're going to globalize this country while people, sit idly by, twiddle their thumbs, and expect the government to give them free health care and welfare and Social Security. Our country is lost because of that, because of the mindset of people. It's like people with Social Security. They have argued vehemently about people not taking funding from it, but will cheer to take funding from something else. I'm sorry you got roped into a Ponzi scheme, because that's what Social Security is. I agree with Rick, one from Texas, can't think of his name. I agree with that mentality. I agree with that because it is. It works fine if the base of employees is greater than those that are retired, because you have enough support there to pay out for the people. You don't have that. The baby boomers outnumber those in the working class. The numbers of people that are employed and supporting the Social Security system is less than those taking from Social Security. The pyramid has been turned upside down. So, and you're not also including the fact that it is the most abused of the three, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, as far as its funding. It's the most abused funding. You have economists saying that within the next 30 years, 20 to 30 years, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid will be all that makes up our budget. The rest will go into deficit, which means debt. Will become debt if they don't cut it. So if our government does not make cuts to these programs and to everything else is acquired, the total of our budget will be 3 things. All the other things they have going will go right to the deficit, and if not cut, to debt. And that means that we'll be probably producing $2 to $3 trillion, if not more, of debt a year. It doesn't make sense. And here, and this is what makes me think that the government's preparing for economic collapse, $80 million is being spent in New York to secure the IRS buildings there and other government buildings, mainly financial agencies. And now Arkansas, the Homeland Security is also asking for them to have funding for protection for these buildings. So it seems like they're preparing for civil unrest. And they even say that the reason for this is because of the chance of civil disobedience and civil unrest. So they're preparing for something. They're ramping up themselves. They're getting ready. Other countries are preparing for our currency to collapse. They're buying gold and silver. They're hedging against the collapse. Russia and China have bought large sums of gold and silver within the last year. And they're filling their coffers with that instead of U.S. dollars. Because being the trade currency, the U.S. dollar replaced gold in many countries' safes. They were stockpiling dollars instead of gold. Paper instead of intrinsic value. And we wonder why we have such economic problems now with many of the countries. And that's the scary thing, is if the dollar collapses within the next year, which is some analysts' prediction is that the dollar will lose its ground as the trade currency. It will lose all of its value, and we will be left holding the bag, basically. The American people will be holding dead currency that has no value. All your savings, all your retirement, everything gone. And people will say, well, you're a gloom and doom type person. No, I'm a realist. You know, it's fine to be somebody that's a positive person, or, sees the glass as half full. But first and foremost, you have to understand what you're measuring. I mean, if you've got a cup full of sewer water, does it really matter if that glass is half full or half empty? Would you drink it? It's what the content of what you're measuring is about. And you have to be a realist about some of this stuff. Economic collapse is a true possibility. And those that don't see it are what's bringing this country down. There were those that didn't listen to Peter Schiff and Ron Paul and others. They laughed at them to their face when they said that back in 2006, during the real estate boom, that this is creating a bubble, that, having these type policies and things of that nature is going to lead to large amounts of foreclosure. And they laughed. These other economists that went by Keynesian models, were going by, the Keynesian model, didn't see it. They laughed. And Yellen, who's been appointed, she sat there and nothing in her, what she said, was about the economic collapse or the foreseeing of an economic collapse. She saw business as usual. There was nothing in her writings that made it out like she knew. She asked a question because she was being questioned. So she posed a question, well, what do you think? To get more insight and input. That does not mean that she knew of a collapse or a bursting of the real estate bubble. Most of these, economists now that are toting these lines are the same people that were toting the line during that. So how trustworthy is their information? If they were wrong about the real estate market and a bubble being there, how wrong are they about the stability of our currency? How wrong are they about, the stability of markets? How far can they project other than minute by minute? It's a farce. And I would say, again, be prepared. Be utterly prepared for what's coming. And it's hard to do. I mean, we're so focused in our day-to-day life, I know. I have been. That it's so easy to go into that mentality of just not caring. But the moment you do that, the moment you stop caring, the moment you just throw your hands up, is the moment that they've won. Because you are another person that's going to be at the whim of whatever they do. Knowing the game is the first step. Getting angry that you were being played is the next. But be careful. I see so many, and I want to bring this up. There's so many people that are waking up. And they're not just conspiracy theorists. They're people that are libertarian. They're people that are liberty-minded. They're people that are Tea Partyists and all that. And not all, seeing the government as gloom and doom. But when they wake up to the fact that there's something going on, they may not know what, but they wake up to it. Many of them, because they're angry, start yelling and screaming at people. Online, in person, whatever. And that's not the right approach. The best approach is understanding. You have to understand that that person's in the same boat you were when you were asleep. When you didn't realize what was going on. And then if somebody came up to you and started saying you're wrong, you don't know what the heck you're talking about, and blah, 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 the first thing you do is shut down and turn off. You do not want to hear it. You do not want to listen to it. Turn that passion into understanding. Take that passion and make it so that you can come up with answers to questions that don't cause resentment, that open people up. Because, I mean, if you approach somebody by calling them stupid, they're not going to listen to you. You've insulted them. But if you come at them with an understanding of, I understand where you're coming from, I can see why you would think that way, explain out why you can see why they think that way, and then explain another way of looking at it. That takes more work, of course, but it is more of an opportunity to open people up, to make them to start thinking about these issues, and to not let their mind be ruled by what the media says. Most people, when they debate politics or current events, they debate through the talking points of the news. And you can tell because they say the same things the news says. I laughed when they brought back kicking the can down the road, and then you start hearing people say it again. But, that was something recent. I was like, they're using that again. Is this kicking the can down the road? Lovely talking points. But anyway, so that's the thing, is you got to break through that mentality. You have to kind of make people start critically thinking again. They're not used to it. There was a point where I just didn't want to hear about it anymore, thought it would go away, and then I thought, that's not the right way to think about things. That's not the right way to go about this. Get involved. Make the effort to wake people up. If they don't want to listen to it, they think you're crazy, that's on them. That's not on me. At least I'm trying. I'm trying to present accurate information as best as I can. Some things I'm going to be wrong about, but I will retract those. Unlike the news doesn't do that. But getting yourself out there and going with the mindset that I'm going out there with an understanding because I know what it's like. And I know that I didn't like when people approach me that way. It's kind of like the person yelling and screaming on the street. How many people are going to gather around that person to listen to them open-mindedly and not mock and laugh? The moment you get in people's faces and you start yelling and screaming, it doesn't work. Alex Jones and Glenn Beck and a number of others do that. And I can understand to a point the frustration. You've been barking at people all the time, but when you start self-glorifying and you start putting people down and you start yelling and screaming, people are like, gee, I don't want to listen to this. That's why I don't watch the news anymore. That's one of the key reasons, is because it's an emotional shouting match, between these people of opposing political understandings. One's is just yelling at the other. And it's like, well, I don't even know what you're arguing about. Because you're both talking at the same time, nothing's getting through. So don't be of that mindset. Don't be of the mindset that turns so many people off. Go out there with the understanding that, to wake people up, getting in their face, calling them stupid, calling them zombies, calling them, sheeple, calling them these different names. And you can do that amongst yourself. You can do that amongst the people that agree with you. And thanks for joining me, Brad, after milking the goat. I just saw that pop up. The problem is that if you go with the mentality of yelling and screaming and anger, you're going to get anger in return. If you go at people with an understanding mindset, with the understanding that you're debating the issue. And that's one thing that I think that would solve a lot of problems. If you're going to debate somebody on something that you disagree with them about, stick to the issue. Don't make it personal. Don't throw sarcastic jabs at them. Because the more you do that, the more it takes away from your point. Go at it with the understanding that I'm trying to get through to this person, and the way to do that is to take and make sure that they understand I know where they're coming from, but put a spin on it, put a turn on it, show them another way of looking at it. Give them the tools to start critically thinking, because you're just going to force people away, and it's not going to work with everybody. There are some people that seek out fights that way. We call them trolls now in popular society, but there are people that seek fights. There are people out there that want to punch back because they're expecting you to step up to them and be arrogant and sarcastic. I've seen it happen so many times. There's been people that have cussed me out when I never personally attacked them because they were expecting a personal attack. And there's sometimes you can diffuse that. There's sometimes you can diffuse it by not engaging it. You don't engage that, then eventually you figure out, I'm not going to win this argument acting this way. Some will, some won't. But that's my points to people that are waking up or awake, is when you go and you try to rationalize with people of a liberal mindset, of a closed mindset, of a sleeping mindset, whatever you want to call it, don't go on the attack. Don't, go after them and start swinging, because you've already lost them. You've already lost their interest in the debate. You've already lost their interest in the subject. You've already lost, is the key point. Go in it with a mindset of understanding that their point of view, showing it to them, and then saying there's another way to see this. Being somebody of a libertarian mindset is to look for the path of least harm. And that should be in how you debate people, as well as the strategies you look for in politics to solve problems. It should be harm reduction, whether you're a constitutionalist, libertarian, Tea Party, or whatever. You look for the solutions that result in the least amount of harm. And we're down to about 8 minutes left. Really, in the news today, there's nothing surprising here. Obamacare is failing. They can't get the website to work after 4 years. Really. The simplicity of that website, the simplicity of the look and everything, really, that didn't look like it took them that long to put together. First off. Second off, you had all this time to work out the problems with the database. Now you have people entering their information in the system, and they could be subject to have it stolen. It's just ridiculous. People cheer this. I just don't get that. I'm like, oh my God. Even when the ship is sinking, people cheer. I wish that the Republican Party would have had the backbone to keep the shutdown going past the debt ceiling crisis, just to show people that it's all an illusion. But because of the failures in the system and the fact that you have so many people within the Republican Party that play the same party politics as the left, that ain't going to happen. Even with Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and other people that are more constitutionally aware, it ain't going to happen. The same 19 people, I think in the House, voted no, as they did in other stuff that was unconstitutional. So you really only have 19 members of the House that are really striving to be constitutionally minded and not just playing party politics. Even Rand Paul has played party politics, and that sometimes is a little disheartening because A lot of people are talking about him running in 2016 as for president. And while I agree with him on certain things, there are other things I don't. And, his foreign policy is not a reflection of his father's. There's certain aspects of what he wants to do economically that are not a reflection of libertarian ideals. And I think that he totes party lines just like so many others. And it makes me question his motives. With his father, I didn't, because he stuck to his guns. The whole time he was in in Congress, he stuck to his guns. And that would have been the first person I would have voted for that was under the two-party banner ever. I have never voted for somebody of one party or the other because I never found anybody within those two parties that I adamantly agreed with. Ron Paul, for the most part, 90-some% of what he was talking about, I agreed with. So I was going to vote for him. Now I don't see anybody from a grassroots origin being able to run for the Republican ticket, because they've done away with a lot of the grassroots style government or campaigning, like with the caucuses. I mean, they're tied now. They're not able to have those type of debates down at the caucus level, to have votes at the caucus level that would bring somebody to the top that necessarily wouldn't because of popular vote. Well, they put an end to that. They're going to make sure that whoever they hand pick is the one that gets in. Which, through the media, the one that got the most face time was Mitt Romney last time. In 2008, it was McCain. So they're already hand-picking him, but they want to make sure that nothing like this happens again because Ron Paul got too close. He got too close to, overthrowing their circus. He got too close to overthrowing who they picked. And if we get to the 2016 election, I mean, the way things are going right now, who knows? It's going to be, whoever they pick on the left and whoever they pick on the right, having just enough diversity in their views to make it seem like you have two choices, and you'll have the majority probably picking whoever is touted as being, the best candidate out of the two. Most people don't care about politics. I mean, there's so many people that just sit there and, I just don't follow it. I don't care about politics. And that's mind-boggling too, because politics cares about you. Whatever they do affects your life. But you're more worried about what celebrities are doing. So many people just care about what celebrities are doing. They have no, effect on me. Yes, the sense of effect is because, they actually have clout. They get to say stuff and people listen. And they actually think they have an intellectual point. A lot of them don't. I mean, the funniest thing I've ever seen, I think people should watch this on YouTube, was Stephen Baldwin going against Ron Paul. That was the funniest thing I've ever seen on the drug war. Look it up on YouTube if you've never seen it. But they had a debate, and it was just the most disjointed debate, because you have Stephen Baldwin, who's played a stoner kid in a movie, I can't remember which one, up there debating against legalization of marijuana and other drugs. And then you have Ron Paul, who's, this 70-year-old politician just owning him on the issue. And he did it by sticking to the facts. And it's just so funny because, Stephen Baldwin was at the end just like, oh, well, maybe he's right. He had no point. All of his arguments were just talking points that have been made so many times before that have no factual base. And that's the thing, is that you have to break down people's talking points and show them that there's no facts behind it. Many people don't want to hear it, though. There's so many people that still argue it, and then you just point it out, and they still don't get it, that they've been lied to. Like Obamacare. People don't want to believe that this is a lie. They don't want to believe that our government is trying to consolidate power. What I think is that they're trying to consolidate power, and they're moving to a globalization. If you centralize power at the top, it's so much easier because you have so fewer hands involved in migrating that to a globalist agenda. If you have, everything at the county and the state level, you would have a very hard time getting everybody on board with migrating things to a globalist market or a globalist government. And that's what they're leading to. So, and all signs are pointing that way. People can come up with different scenarios and say that's not true, but for me, all signs are pointing towards when you centralize power at the top, you're getting ready to globalize the government. You're getting ready to say, well, this sovereign nation thing ain't working out too well. Look at healthcare. Look at the economy. Look at our currency. We need to globalize. And so you could take, instead of having a national bank like the Federal Reserve, you have a global bank. And you have a global currency. And then you increase the value of the currency because now you have everybody under it. But there's still huge sums of debt that are already in it, built into that currency, because you're taking on all the debt of all the nations. So it won't take long before that currency, under the expanded amount of people under it, falls into disarray like we are now. It's still fiat. It still doesn't have anything intrinsic, related to it. So the people are the ones that are going to suffer for these decisions. And they're cheering it the whole way. Obamacare, that's another step towards globalization. Many people have spoken about it, that, all you have to have is a government that, by the will of the people, starts taking on more and more responsibility. And then, if it starts to fail, that government can throw its hands up and say, well, let's get everybody involved. Well, you have so many nations now doing that all they have to do is get together and create a one world government or a new world order, and everybody's screwed. The individual, the people, they're the ones that are going to be holding the debt and the disappointment. And that's the scary thing, because most people do not get that. They get nothing of what's going on. Even economists don't get it. They laughed at the housing bubble. Now they're laughing at the currency bubble. They're laughing at, the healthcare bubble. They're laughing at all these things. You have fewer, but you still have those that do. And there's people that follow them as intellectual sources of information about these things. Yes, Brad, the debt is an illusion, but it's one that they are forcing upon us. So, and it trickles down in this scenario. This is the way the government's set up. This is the way our currency's set up. This is the way everything's set up. banking systems. You don't have independent banks anymore. They're all tied to the Federal Reserve. You know, they're slowly going away. The major blow to independent banks was the Great Depression. That was them making sure that you didn't have independent financial institutions, that everything went to the Federal Reserve. And it was a consolidation of power, and now they pretty much have total power over the financial market entirely. And so everything resides on that. So you can watch the markets all you want. It's still reliant on a failing currency system. If the currency fails, the whole market fails. I mean, come on. But yeah, I could go on and on. It is 10:05 here, and 5 minutes past the time of ending the show. But again, like I said, be mindful of how you talk to people. For those that are in the know, that have woken up, be mindful of how you talk to people that have not woken up to this. Try to make a message that will help people wake up and not force them back asleep. Force them out of the argument. Force them out of the debate. I mean, I told one person, because even though there was no personal attack made, I don't want to debate. My response is the only way we're going to resolve the problems of now is to debate. Is to debate the issue. Not to create personal attack, but debate the issue. And that's where we come to an understanding. That's where we come to, as a people, a reasonable solution. Right now we have unreasonable solutions. And the only reason people tote those lines is because they've been fed them by the media. So, we are the independent army. We are the ones out there trying to fight the disinformation put out there. And you can only do that if you're effective with your message. If you can't be effective with your message, help out in other ways. Don't alienate people that, need to be woken up because you're angry. That's not going to help. And I will leave you with that. I want to say thank you for listening. And again, be prepared. Have a good one.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.